to women would be great. We're going to actually centralize the risk assessment too. We're going to take screening and say that screening includes a risk assessment. And we're going to try and look to find the people who have the opportunity to have a prevention counseling.
And how do you determine the risk assessment? Is that with genetic testing?
So the first screen really is just trying to understand some, some lifestyle factors and your family history. So that things that there's several models out there. There's the Gale risk, the Klaus, BRCA Pro. So what's your risk of having an inherited BRCA1 or 2 mutation? And there's actually a new model, the Breast Cancer Screening Consortium model, that integrates breast density and some of the family risk factors and whether or not you've had kids and when you had kids, what time you started your period and so on. So there are increasingly more models to use that I think can help us understand, not people who are on the cusp of being high risk, but really we're looking for the people really in the upper 20% of the population, or people who are significantly more risk than the average, to make sure we target those people for at least a conversation about screening. I think that what we want to do is use cardiology as our model. Cardiologists, starting with the Framingham study, said, okay, people die of heart disease and stroke, but the surrogates for those are cholesterol and high blood pressure. And instead of making our studies, the first studies were about reducing death and stroke and MI rates. And then all the secondary studies, which are much quicker, are all about reducing blood pressure and cholesterol. And what we witnessed is a huge drop in death from heart disease. That really would be a great model for us.
Really
So who's at risk for what kind of cancer? My vision is to say, look, we need to do a big study, a demonstration project. We'll profile everyone who's get diagnosed with cancer, and we track all the people who are being screened and say, okay, who's at risk for what kind of cancer? Using all the new tests, and then start drilling down and trying to figure out how we're going to prevent and tailor screening and prevention and treatment.
And I think that's what's so scary to women when this study first came out, and they're saying, oh, well, the new guidelines say you don't need to get a mammogram, you don't have to do self-exam and different things like that. And it is kind of scary when no one else is coming out with, well, we're doing this because we are going to be increasing the quality of care in these ways.
Right, and we want to do that. So this Athena Breast Health Network is something that the 5 University of California medical centers have committed to undertaking together. It's a big enough group that we can really make a dent in some of these questions and quickly.
And that's the thing.
Quickly, and I think that we want, and so on. Hopefully, every year we'll have something new. To bring to people, and there actually is stuff to do. Importantly, you don't have to get screened as often, but you have to be aware of your own breast exam and just be familiar. Those are things you have to do. And pay attention to whether you have any risk factors. These things are important. There's lots to do.
I totally agree. Then my other question was, I totally agree with we need to get this stuff done as fast as possible. So there is a way to assess the risk when you're lowering the amount of mammograms. But do you feel like there's going to be this gap in between those two things where we're going to see maybe some people that should have gotten a mammogram but didn't because they're confused, because there isn't this better education out there and there isn't new ways of assessing the risk, do you know what I mean, being shown to them?
I think you have to say, let's focus on making sure we're doing the most good. Let's get those women 50 to 70, 50 to 75, 50 to 74, somewhere in that range, and say, let's make sure that everyone's getting screened every other year. Let's make that the highest priority. If women want to get screened in their 40s, then we should do it. But, the absolute benefit that we're going to make by screening everyone in their 40s is not that big. It's just not. So let's focus on making sure that we've got the message straight for those women in the middle. And we talked about all these things that people need, where that don't come from the mammogram. Let's pay for that with the savings. I mean, again, most systems don't have it as a closed system. So everyone's so, they say, well, if I just get rid of my resource, then it's gone and nothing happens. Well, for the Avon community programs, they can actually use those resources and distribute them better. For the average person, or for the average system, they'll say, oh, well, why would I give that up? Because then it doesn't come back to us for breast health.
Exactly.
That's a sad thing.
Yeah.
That should not be acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, that people, everyone has to come to the table and say, wow, I want a health system that does the most good
Oh, yeah.
for constrained resources. We all have limited resources.
Well, that brings me to another question, because the other thing that popped into my head as soon as I heard all this was how the insurance companies seem to take every opportunity to decrease, the services they provide. And I think maybe that is part of the reason why there is so much, stress and hoopla for women over this, because
Right.
they feel like, well, the insurance companies, all they care about is making money. They're going to decrease this and not increase some other things that might benefit us, and then we're really going to be in a worse place.
Right. So, but I think that's a vicious cycle, because I think what you're then saying is, I'm not giving on this, and I want to do this, doing something that actually might create more harm than good, just because I'm afraid the insurance company is going to do something bad.
Yeah.
That doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think the insurance companies are going to, stop funding mammographic screening. They're not. That would be sort of a suicidal kind of thing for them to do.
You would think, yeah.
You would think. But regardless, we just can't let that be what dominates us. I mean, that's like malpractice and all these things. We have to start having some courage to do the right thing, right? So we've got to put it in perspective. We can do as much good, let's do it. And then when we ask for something else, it comes up, say, okay, now we're asking for that. But I think that we have to be more reasonable about it, and we shouldn't spend resources just 'cause.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think I don't think that does anyone good, because there's harm. There's harm associated with it, and we want to decrease that harm. And if someone has a bad experience and has biopsy and they hate it, they won't come back and do the screening, and now you're decreasing the chance that something good will come of it,
Yeah.
right?